I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about Common Cause. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that was founded in 1972. We do work with democratic systems to try and make sure that everybody has a voice, which is why we're commonly known as the People's Lobby. And so it's really important for us, in the midst of everything that's going on with the threats to our elections and COVID-19, to make sure that everybody is still able to cast a ballot and participate in our democracy to the fullest extent that they're able. So we do a lot of work with election protections. If you have any questions during or after this, you can feel free to go to justvotecolorado.org, where we have an FAQ, maps to find your polling places, and Dropbox locations. I'm sure the fine folks here have some resources for you as well. And if you have any thoughts or questions for them, then again, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. And with that, then I will go ahead and open it up to introductions. So starting with George, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work with Jefferson County?
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks to Common Cause for putting this on, and to all of you for joining us tonight. My name is George Stern. I'm the Jefferson County Clerk and Recorder. And for those of you who don't know Clerks and Recorder super well, while many of our citizens interact with us for elections, we also oversee the DMV. We do recording, marriage license, liquor licenses, and everything else. I was elected in November of 2018 and have been in the role now so for about a year and a half, running several elections, special elections, and then the presidential primary and November election, and have been thinking a lot about how we can make Jefferson County elections more accessible, make sure that they're open to all eligible voters, and that we're doing our best work to bring more people into the process and make voting in Colorado as easy as it can possibly be. So I'm excited to share some of that work and then to hear from the other panelists as well.
And going counterclockwise on my screen, Bianca.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Bianka Emerson. I'm the Vice President of Colorado Black Women for Political Action. I have been in electoral politics for about 15 years, recently working for Governor Polis's campaign as the Deputy Political Director, and also for Mayor Hancock as the campaign coordinator. I have a law degree, and also I have a master's in public administration and history. I've done extensive research on the law and social science and the impact on our elections and our legal system. So thanks for having me here today.
Absolutely, we're happy to have you. Joan, would you care to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I've been an employee for Arapahoe County for 18 years. Been involved with elections for those 18 years, and plus that, with my family, they're very, very involved in with community and politics. Decided that I wanted to run the show in 2013, and lost that election, and then decided that I wasn't going to give up, and ran again, and won again, just like George, at the same race in 2018, and was sworn in 2019. So very excited to be here, and yeah, let's make elections more accessible, just like George said, and we're doing all we can to, especially with this COVID-19, we're doing everything we can to make sure everybody feels safe and get out the vote early.
Great, and we also, we're supposed to have Judge Chody. He may be running a little bit late, but if he's able to join us, then we'll just give him a few seconds to introduce himself later. So with that, then we're just going to go ahead and jump into the prepared questions from Common Cause staff and our audience. So obviously this is not a normal election year. I think we all know that. And with COVID-19, there has been a lot of concern about how folks are able to vote and access their ballots. So what are the most important changes that y'all are seeing in your work to make sure that folks are able to vote this year? Joan, why don't we go ahead and start with you and circle back around?
Well, we have an amazing team, I'll have to say that. We've made sure that everybody has we've done whatever we can to make sure every voter and every judge is safe. We've added curbside pickup where you can call and get your ballot in advance. And with your driver's license, you would be, it's just in case you didn't get your ballot, or maybe you spoiled your ballot. That's one of the big options that we've we've put in place. We've actually put tent teams in our most busiest locations as far as drop-off locations and voting centers. They're tent teams so that we have the computer. We have to make sure that they don't come in. So we have the social distancing. We've made sure that we've hired backup judges to make sure that if something, maybe an outbreak, or maybe somebody decides that they don't feel comfortable as a judge to come in, that we have that backup. Just making sure everybody feels safe. Early voting campaign has been going on as far as social media goes. We have about 11% turnout right now. It looks like the last time I looked at the numbers is about 42,000 ballots that we've already received. So I'm hoping that this is not going to be like other elections where they wait till the last minute. But if they do, we do have those sort of options as far as not be social distancing and making sure that they're not required to come in and wait in lines like other elections you've seen in the news.
And for folks who might not know, could you explain what a spoiled ballot is super quick?
Oh, so say you spilled coffee on it. Say you voted for the wrong person, all of a sudden you changed your mind. Or not even so much as a spoiled ballot. If you're going to do a curbside pickup, you didn't receive it. Maybe you didn't update your address. But we all have places as far as curbside pickup where you can just call and pick up a ballot so you feel safe in getting your ballot. Just bring your driver's license and pick it up. But yeah, that would be a spoiled ballot, is if you didn't receive it, or not a spoiled ballot, but if you spilled coffee on it, you messed it up, maybe you threw it away by accident. People do that quite a bit. So yeah, we're there for you. Just, we want to hear your voice.
Bianca, would you care to talk a little bit about what you've been seeing with changes in your community and your work with COVID-19 lately?
Well, I would say the biggest issue is these campaigns have had to scramble to change their GOTV efforts because we can't meet in person now. So now everything is digitized, everything is using technology. And I personally, I've always been an advocate for reaching out our elderly communities. And so that's a bigger issue too as well. We're having, you know, that gap in reaching certain communities given COVID-19. So I see a lot of campaigns trying to struggle to find out how they can better reach the candidate that doesn't have a Zoom account or doesn't have Google Video or whatnot. So I think that's a major concern right now.
Great. George, anything to add about what Jeffco has been doing?
So, you know, I think what I hear from Joan and Bianca is sort of true in that campaigns have had to see a lot of change. The beautiful thing about the Colorado election model is that we haven't had to see that much change. For 98% of our voters, this process is going to look identical to the voting process they're used to, right? So only a couple of percent, 1 to 3% in each county, vote in person in each election. So for 98% of our voters, it's the exact same process. We mailed you your ballots 3 weeks ahead of time. You can return those ballots to us at drop boxes, many of which don't even require you to get out of your car, by the mail. You can do continue using the mail up until this coming Monday, and you can continue to register to vote or update your voter registration until this coming Monday and still get a ballot in the mail. And then you can, of course, do it after that up until 7 p.m. on election night at any of our in-person vote centers. And that's where we're seeing some of the changes that Joan described as well. But all I really want to stress is that, you know, I think we're lucky here in Colorado to have a voting model that makes this, for most folks, not a change at all, even though we've got a global pandemic going on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one of the things that we've seen is that a lot of states that don't necessarily have as resilient vote by mail structures, like Wisconsin and Georgia, are struggling a lot right now to make sure that folks have access. Do y'all think that there's anything that we should be learning from those struggles specifically, or do you think, you know, we have not to say perfected, but just created a better model for voting access here? What do you think that we can pull out from the difficulties that those states have been facing?
I think it's just being prepared. I think that was the major issue with Georgia. They just weren't prepared. But I like the gloat that, you know, we are setting the model for the nation. We're a great representation, and people are looking up to Colorado to see what we're doing. And I think we've already started doing things. I believe the Secretary of State, when she was at she was actually our guest speaker at a general body meeting this week on Monday, and she talked about adding, you know, a few more places, making sure that those older election judges who are older, who may fear, you know, their health, she's going out and recruiting some younger people, making sure that even the pay is even commensurate to what people are used to having. So we're ahead of the game, and we're taking steps to be prepared. And like I said again, like George was saying, we've kind of done this already, so we're already prepared. And we've been doing this mail-in ballot for a while. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed that we won't have those issues, and I don't believe that we will.
Absolutely. From our two clerk and recorders, are there any practices that you are seeing that you think that you might want to continue into the future? George, I know that you've been working on mobile voting sites to try and make sure that folks have that option. And obviously that may not be, I'm not sure, is that something that you were planning on working on prior to COVID, or something that you're planning on keeping after?
Yeah, so it was certainly in the hopper, but COVID sped up our plans, and a silver lining here, because I think it is going to have a lot of benefit after. We'll definitely continue after. So I think Bianca couldn't be more right that, you know, the key learning for me from other states is that we need to be prepared, and what that has taught us is, you know, again, so 98% of our voters, the system looks exactly the same, and that's awesome. And the Colorado model really has been a model for the nation. And as Bianca said, Secretary Griswold has been doing an awesome job of speaking about that nationwide. But we do have that 2% who need to vote in person, and it's critical that we be prepared for them so we don't have a situation like we've seen in Wisconsin and Georgia with, you know, terribly long lines, people having to wait many hours just to be able to vote, and putting their health and their lives at risk to do that. So we've been trying to think about how we can make this as safe as possible for voters. So step number one is to try and, you know, get as many people as possible who don't have to vote in person to not vote in person. And so that is until Monday, until 11:59 p.m. this coming Monday, you can still get a ballot in the mail if you register to vote or update your voter registration. GoVoteColorado.gov. You can update your info there, you can register, and your clerk will then still send you a ballot in the mail, and you won't have to come into our in-person vote centers at all. Then when you do come in, what we have been working hard on, and I know all clerks across the state have, is finding sites that are safe, right? So we're using, many of our sites are new because they are much bigger than they have been in the past. They allow for social distancing so folks aren't crowded in there when they're trying to vote. We have plexiglass between our election workers and our voters. We're requiring face coverings for our workers. We're encouraging them for our voters. We're sanitizing every voting station in between voters. And then, as you mentioned, we have a mobile voting site that we have set up that you'll never have to come into a location. It's a trailer and a big tent outside. And we have it set up in Evergreen, but the beauty of it is that we can take it anywhere. It's mobile. And so if, say, we had an outbreak at one of our most popular vote sites on election day, we can just roll that into the parking lot and not miss a beat. We don't have to close down the only vote center in Lakewood, the only vote center in Arvada. We roll that in, and we're able to continue having that flexibility for our voters. And then to your point, I think, you know, while it has proven to be very helpful in COVID, we think this can be especially helpful going forward. So Red Rocks is in Jeffco, right? I want to park this trailer outside Red Rocks while a concert's letting out and have 10,000 people have to drive by my in-person vote center and, you know, be able to help them there. We can put this on college campuses. We can bring it to farmers markets on the weekends, or to community events, or to parades where there's going to be a lot of folks, to make sure we're hitting them. So we're actually grateful for one limited reason for COVID, that it's allowed us to accelerate getting this mobile voting site that we can use in a lot of other ways going forward.
Yeah, it's fantastic that you're providing that option to folks. And one of the things that has actually made Colorado so great, as everybody here has alluded to, is the fact that we can use mail-in ballots. And at the same time as we are having that nationwide conversation about expanding access to voting by mail, then this presidential administration is obviously trying to prevent that and make cuts to USPS that may have a really bad effect on their ability to function. So would any of you like to talk for a minute about what role you think that's going to have in our ability to carry out mail ballots this election? Are you concerned about that? Joan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I'm not concerned about that. I think that, like, again, what George said, 90% of our voters actually drop, the people that actually turn in their ballot, drop it off in our drop-off boxes. So it doesn't need postage. We pick it up. So it doesn't even go through the post office at all. You know, I don't think it's going to affect Colorado. I think, unfortunately, it will definitely probably slow things down, probably due to not having funding for staffing. But as far as us, we might get some of the ballots you know, not even a few days afterwards. But again, 90% of our voters put it in our Dropbox, so they don't even need to go through the post office. And of course, all of the procedures that we're putting into place, and we've done this since 2013. So I think we pretty much have a sealed deal going on, that we have the experience of mail-in ballot, and we're making sure that everybody has a voice. I don't think it's going to affect us. I don't know if anybody feels any differently, but I really don't think that that's going to be an issue at all in this race, or in November either.
It's great to hear. And someone points out in chat, obviously y'all have to mail the ballots to voters, and you don't anticipate any problem with that, or haven't had any issues thus far in November, no?
I don't
Great.
see any issues, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things that we've seen in previous years is that with mail-in ballots, then it can take some time to process and fully count them after the actual election. So in 2018, during the Democratic primary for Attorney General, it took a couple of days for who turned out to be the losing candidate to concede, because there were about 50,000 ballots that were still uncounted. So I'm not sure if y'all are seeing a much higher rate of mail-in ballots. Are you anticipating that results are going to be extended or prolonged over a couple of days? What do you think voters should be expecting there, and have you been communicating that?
So what I always say to every voter is, if you want results earlier, then vote earlier. The best thing you can do to help your clerks get you results faster is to not turn those ballots in on election day. We welcome anyone who wants to vote up until 7 p.m. on election day. We're going to let you in. We're excited for you to vote. But if you are then going to tell us you're not getting results fast enough, next time please vote Monday, Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, the 3 weeks you had beforehand. So what happens is, we see about a third in Jeffco, about a third of our votes come in on election day. We're fully caught up Tuesday morning, and then we get slammed Tuesday, and we have to spend, you know, late into Tuesday night, often early Wednesday morning, and then start again fresh Wednesday and often Thursday. It is definitely going to be slower for us with the pandemic. We have a ballot processing facility where we're cramming in as many election workers as we can, but we care about their health and safety, and we're going to make sure that they are adequately social distanced, and so we can't get quite as many election workers in there as we have been able to in past elections, and that's going to slow us down. But if everyone were voting this week or even next week and not in the final few days, we wouldn't miss a beat, and we'd be able to get you those results just as quickly as usual.
Yeah, everybody wants it to be faster, for sure, especially on a close race. But we have staggered all of our judges just because of the social distancing. We've staggered their schedules to make sure that we just keep counting And I seriously don't think it's going to slow us down at all as far as the count goes. Whether it's close or not, that's another issue. Again, especially if it's close or if it's a blowout, we're going to do the same procedures that we do normally. We have a schedule on when we post results, and it's every 90 minutes on election night, and then we don't post until noon the next day. And that's just because I don't want everybody calling me and saying, you know, what are the results? What are the results? We have an actual schedule that we follow, and it's posted, and I really don't think that that's going to hinder even with the COVID going on, just because I have an amazing team that have scheduled all of our judges and staggered them. So the actual count just keeps coming. So, and keeps going. So we're not going to stop our operation.
Fantastic. And on the note of campaigns, Bianca, since George and Joan are obviously elections officials, and Colorado Black Women for Political Action does a lot more advocacy and education work, what have you been seeing from campaigns and in your own efforts as y'all are trying to make sure that folks understand their options and are still able to get all the information they need in this election?
Well, one of the things we always run into is the apprehension of the voting process overall when it comes to communities of color, and the distrust of the system, the distrust of voting. And so with all of the issues and the rhetoric with the mail and the USPS and that funding and COVID, and issues with health disparities with communities of color, all those are issues that we've been talking about and trying to get ahead of the game with, and just making sure that our voters are informed, and partnering with other organizations that are doing extra efforts for GOTV. So that's really where we're at now. And we actually just rolled out our endorsement list. So we're also making sure that people have an opportunity to talk to those people who are candidates, who are running for office, so that those individuals, so that the people who are voting can be well informed on who they're voting for.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I mean, obviously, we brought up Wisconsin, and there were a lot of good pieces about how, particularly in communities of color, there was essentially a choice between being able to practice your right to vote or being able to protect yourself and your health. And especially when we already have these existing inequalities in health systems, then the effect of a pandemic on our election is going to come across really unequally. So I'm not sure if you feel you've said enough there, but would you like to say anything about how you think that, particularly in vulnerable communities, that we can make sure that folks have access?
I think we have to make sure that people are they're assured that their safety is intact, their health is intact. So I like that we have, you know, the drive up places where you can drop off the ballot. There's extra measures, like George was saying, you have the glass and requirements for masks and things of that nature. But I just think people have to feel safe. We have to make sure that people say, okay, if I have to drop this off, even the drop box itself is safe to even touch, you know. And then I think also, just aside from just the health disparity, we have a lot of work to put more trust in the system itself. You know, we always have this, the system doesn't work for me, and it just, even with the current state of our country, you know, and race relations, there's no trust in the system at all for a lot of African Americans and other communities of color. So it's like, why should I vote anyway? So we just have a lot of work to do just to restore trust in the system itself. Even the long held narrative that my vote doesn't count because of the electoral college. So it's just a lot of work we have to do, and that's part of the work that we're doing at CBWPA as well.
And this is something that somebody, I believe Anne, sent in a question before the panel. What do you, Joan and George, feel free to jump in here, but what do you do with folks who, especially now, feel like their vote doesn't count? Because there is obviously an existing distrust of these institutions with very good reason, and that hasn't particularly gotten better over the last couple of months.
Well, first of all, with Arapahoe County, We have ballot track, and I guess the state has signed on everyone at this point for this particular election for ballot track. You can sign up for that on our website and on the state website, and it actually says when your ballot is moved out, actually mailed out. It actually says when we receive it and when it's counted. So that's an option to sign up for. Arapahoe County, as far as like making sure that everybody's voice is heard, we only are required to have 4 voting locations. So if, say, you don't receive your ballot or you decide you want to vote on election day, we do have those locations, extra locations. We did have 7 last election. Now we have 6, only because the college closed down and they weren't able to open. But we always make sure that there's access to more voting places throughout the county, when before it wasn't the case at all. So just making people feel safe, making sure that hopefully they do sign up for that and they know that their vote was counted. I have several friends that receive their ballot and they go and vote in person. And I hear what you're saying in the past where people have said, you know, well, my vote doesn't count, or I'm not going to mail in my ballot, or I'm not going to put it in a drop box because I feel more comfortable going into a booth. But I think that just relaying the message that your vote counts through ballot access, and actually ballot track, you can even look up to see if your vote was counted. So we're doing whatever we can as far as social media goes to make sure that your voice is heard. And we have lists, of course, on our website on how many voters we have, what is the turnout. It's live, so hopefully that's making some people feel more secure about, you know, actually knowing that their voice is heard and their vote is counted.
Yeah, and I think I think Joan's so right about all, you know, the ways in which we're trying to allow people to see transparently that their voice is heard and their vote is counted. I think Bianca is an important point initially about, you know, there is a lack of faith in the system, and whether that's a very warranted lack in faith of system among folks who, you know, have been disenfranchised from their vote in the past, or it's a lack of faith in the system from folks who are hearing questions federally from the President of the United States about whether the integrity of our elections is sound. I think it's critical that we be communicating that, first of all, our elections are secure. Colorado has been called by people on both ends of the political spectrum, including President Trump's former Homeland Security Secretary, the safest state in the country to cast a ballot. And that is because of the system we have here. And so we should all feel very good in Colorado that your vote is secure, your vote is going to be processed, your vote is going to be counted, and that really it's then on all of us to turn it in. But I think just as importantly, you know, folks who have felt disenfranchised by the system in the past, that's why we want to make sure we're taking so many efforts, as Joan has described, to expand accessibility. And we've been doing a ton of that here in Jeffco, and Joan has in Arapahoe, and the other big counties have as well. And we want to make sure that people know, you know, not only does your vote matter. I mean, Joan and I, frankly, are success stories in extremely close races, winning by a percentage point or two of 300,000 voters. And so your vote matters. But we have seen, as you referenced, the Attorney General's primary come down to a very close margin. We've seen statewide races come down to very close margins. Your vote matters. We need to make sure that we're making your vote easy to turn in, and we're doing a lot of work to expand that accessibility across all of the metro area and all of the state, frankly.
Well, thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and pivot to some questions in the chat and get into some of the nitty gritty here for a bit. So we have a lot of questions about how to register, especially from some folks who might not have a Colorado ID or driver's license. Would one of you care to talk about that for a minute? Just the general process for folks? Joan, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
You say Joan, or I'm sorry, George? Go ahead. Did you say George or Joan? I'm sorry.
I said Joan, but feel free to brawl it out.
No, that's fine. We have it actually on our website. It's arapahoevotes.com. You can go right on there. There's a link right straight to the state website where you can register to vote. Very quick process. Unfortunately, if you don't submit a Colorado driver's license, I mean, your vote will be counted. They'll actually send you a letter saying that you have to send in your ID. But you can definitely register to vote. You can actually register to vote in Colorado election day. So it's very exciting, very easy. I think that Colorado has made it so easy. We just implemented automatic voter registration. When you get your driver's license, it automatically registers you to vote. It actually updates your address when you go get your driver's license. There's so many ways that that they're making sure that everyone gets a ballot and every voice is heard. It's crazy, and I think that, like I said, like you said, Colorado is the leader for actual mail ballots and voting access.
And Joan's absolutely right thanks to so many activists, including Common Cause, we've created a system where it is incredibly easy to register to vote and vote up until last day. I just want to add, there's a long list of IDs that you can show, that you can use to register to vote. It's on all of our websites. It's on the Secretary of State's website. But so even if you don't have a Colorado driver's license, lots of different ways that you can verify your ID and make sure you're getting registered still. So check out that list. I'm sure if you are an eligible voter in Colorado that you've got one of them.
Yeah. And yeah, there's 16 forms of ID, everything from financial statements to all different sorts of things. So go ahead and check it out online if you're concerned about not having a driver's license. All right. Another question that we have from the audience is about our election security. So we touched on that briefly. I think we are all in agreement that Colorado's elections are fairly secure, but there's a lot of fear out there right now, especially after 2016 and even with the successful election in 2018, about foreign interference in our elections. Is that something that any of y'all are concerned about?
Colorado is just in such a good position in terms of election security, and we typically we do a live tour of our ballot processing facility during the election. Unfortunately, not during COVID, but we're going to do a virtual one, and we've got videos on our site too that walk you through the election security. But just to touch a couple quick points here. So first of all, an all-mail system means an all-paper system, right? We have a paper trail. Every single ballot is a paper trail. We store those ballots for 2 years after the election, and we audit them right after the election to make sure that they were counted exactly as they should have been counted. We're double checking all those results. Our voting machines and our counting machines are never connected to the internet. They never have been. They never will be. You cannot hack a machine that is never connected to the internet. And so we are not worried about that foreign interference the way some other states are. And then it's completely transparent and open to the public. So everything we do is on 24/7 surveillance 100% of the time. It's done in bipartisan teams. We make sure that we've got folks from different parties doing everything, and anyone could come and check back on the tape and request to look at the ballots and recount the ballots, and they can come serve as poll watchers or election watchers in our ballot processing center and see it up close. We invite them in. We welcome folks. Anytime someone has questions for me on election security, I say, hey, don't take my word for it. Just come see it. And as soon as you see it up close, I think you're going to feel pretty darn good about our election security here in Colorado.
If you haven't been to a tour of any of the facilities, that's definitely something that everyone should do if they have any doubt of any fraud going on with the elections department. There's so many steps. There's so many security procedures. There's bipartisan teams, just like George said. It'll change your mind for sure. About
it's a fantastic experience walking through the facility. If any of y'all in the chat haven't done it yet, so feel free to continue typing your questions. I think we have one more prepared one, and if people in the chat aren't don't have anything to add, then we will go ahead and switch to closing remarks. So, with obviously this is a moment of really dramatic change, um, and a lot of states are making the transition to vote by mail. So what are you excited about over the next couple of years now that we already have that system for how we'll be able to continue to expand the franchise and continue to improve Colorado's elections? Bianca, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Well, again, I'm just excited that Colorado is one of the leaders when it comes to mail-in ballots and voter security. So I think our electorate don't have a lot to worry about. But I will say, when it comes to music color, again, I am concerned of a lot of the rhetoric that's coming from the White House, and that further hinders or hurts the ability to get out to vote and make sure that our overall everyone that has the right to vote is actually exercising that right. That's kind of where I kind of pause. But again, I think Colorado's ahead of the game, and that come November and even June, I think we're going to be okay.
Joan, any thoughts there?
I'm excited to continue appointments, voter appointments. I want to do that, and I also want to continue making sure that we have as many drop boxes as we can, especially in underserved areas. Also want to continue having more voter and polling centers throughout the county, just for access and making sure that they're spread out and make sure everybody, even if they didn't receive a ballot for whatever reason, even not updating their address, that actually has access and is able to pick up a ballot even at the last minute. Although in COVID, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to be at the last minute. But yeah, that option is there, and that's what I want to continue for sure.
I think there's been a lot of exciting work. Common Cause has been involved in a lot of it at the legislature in the last year or two with some important updates that I'm excited to see put into practice. So last year, a bill passed that allowed us to dramatically expand the number of drop boxes. As Joan talked about, we're always looking where we can put more drop boxes, and especially in our underserved areas. So Jeffco in the last year, thanks to this legislation, has more than doubled our number of drop boxes from 15 to 31. And we've made sure to put those in our neighborhoods that had lower turnout. And often that was, unfortunately, that meant neighborhoods that were higher population of low-income folks, higher population of people of color, and we're making sure now that we have drop boxes in those areas so that it's easy for everyone to vote, not just those who have cars or happen to live near the closest rec center or county building. And another piece that passed is that 17-year-olds are now allowed to vote in primaries. One of our biggest challenges in Jeffco, 79% turnout in the last presidential election. The worst turnout by far was among our young people. We were in the 20% for our 18 to 24-year-olds, and we were in the 80s and 90s for our 65 and ups. And so we are really trying to make sure that young people are voting. The 17-year-olds being allowed to vote in primaries is an awesome way to help that. We're also trying to get into the high schools to get folks registered early. Another great thing about Colorado elections is you can pre-register to vote. If you're 16 or 17, you can sign up, and as soon as you're eligible, we're going to mail you that ballot. You're already in the system. And then another conversation Common Cause has been leading is about multi-language access to our election system. And so we want to keep joining you in that fight to make sure that folks who don't speak English as their first language or who are U.S. citizens are still able to have that easy access to their voting in any means.
Yeah,
I
and
want to add, I want to make sure.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bianca.
So I just want to make sure with all of those resources that people are aware, people are educated on where things are located and their right to vote. Even Colorado has made it so easy for people who have past criminal records to vote as well. We have our 17-year-olds, we have our automatic voter registration. Even in that, even how easy it is to vote in this state, we still see smaller, lower turnout rates in certain communities and in certain races. So we have a lot to do with making sure that our voters are educated on those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just super quick, and then I'll let you add what you were saying, Joan. Thank you for shouting out the multilingual ballot access bill, George. We really want to make sure that folks are able to continue to get their ballot in a language that they understand so that they can understand what they're voting on and be able to cast their ballot successfully. Joan, did you have something to add to that?
I just wanted to give kudos to George. I know that I saw an email from him saying that he broke records as far as the turnout goes throughout the state. So I just wanted to congratulate him, make sure that he didn't forget to tell everybody that.
Fantastic. So we have a few more questions from the chat, and then we'll move on to final thoughts. So we have a question about putting stamps on ballots. So folks, if you are mailing back your ballot, it has the amount of postage that you need to do that in the instructions. So please make sure that you put postage on your ballot so that it can actually get where it needs to go. For our clerks, what happens if folks put their ballot and Dropbox outside of their home county? So I live in Boulder County. What's the process if I happen to be on a road trip and I go ahead and drop it off in Garfield?
So I'll
It
say
still
this.
gets there.
Yeah,
Oh.
Joan's exactly right. I was gonna whisper it because again, it will slow it down. If you want results faster, turning it in your county is preferred. But put in any Dropbox in the state. We understand people work in different counties. They travel to different counties. They've got to visit family in different counties, especially during a time like this. Put in any Dropbox, and as long as you put in any Dropbox by 7 p.m. on Tuesday night, election night, we'll get it to the home county and get it counted.
We get emails a lot from each other saying, hey, we got this many ballots, and we do a swap. And yeah, we make sure everybody gets their own ballots for sure, and make sure that everybody gets to count their own ballots.
Excellent. I won't have to cancel my road trip. And for folks who have visual impairments or maybe issues with hearing or need assistive technology, what options are available for them in this election?
As far as new legislation in 2018, they have an option where they can vote online. They have to sign up for it every year. And so they can actually, as long as they have a printer, they have to print out the actual ballot and the application and sign it every single year, and then they can submit it. I always tell them to make sure that once they print it and they print the application, to put it in the actual envelope. So if you signed up for ballot track, you can get your notice. So that's an option. And also with the Arapahoe County, we added the little holes where they can sign the actual envelope. So it's from the beginning to the end to where their signature needs to be placed on the envelope for those sort of situations.
Yeah, that legislation Joan mentioned was awesome because it made it even easier for people with disabilities to vote. I'll just add that we have accessible voting machine. This is statewide. Every vote center has accessible voting machines that for folks with disabilities. So you can also come into a vote center. But so glad that legislation passed, right? Because for some, coming into a vote center now is dangerous during a pandemic, and so you now have this home option too.
And they also feel comfortable with their own programming, whatever they feel comfortable using it in their home, instead of actually trying to make it into a voting center and having someone help them. If they have those sort of options at home, it just makes it more comfortable for them to vote.
And it looks like we don't have any more questions from the chat, so I'm going to take us into final thoughts. I'll go ahead and start us off, and then I'll go to George and Bianca and then Joan. So as far as the June primary and COVID, then one of the major things that, as I mentioned, Colorado Common Cause has got to be working on for the November election after this, and to try and make sure that our future elections are more resilient, is making sure that ballots are accepted postmarked, so that if it gets in and is mailed after, so that it arrives after election day but is mailed prior to it, that we're able to accept those. Trying to make sure that postage is prepaid, trying to ensure that everybody has access to a ballot in the language that they're comfortable and familiar with. And we just want to continue making sure that everybody in Colorado has full enfranchisement and the ability to practice their right to vote. And we're excited to continue partnering with all of you to try and make that reality. So why don't we go ahead and go to George, and any final thoughts on the June primary, the November election, and everything that's been going on?
Yeah, so thank you again, Common Cause, for hosting this, and we've had a growing number of participants as the call's gone on. So thank you to all of you for joining us and listening, and please spread the word. You know, there are so many questions floating around, a lot of it driven by the national conversation about the security of our elections, the integrity of elections. You heard a lot about that tonight. We're all lucky to live in Colorado. We've got a great model here, but as Bianca touched on, and as we've continued to reiterate, you know, if people don't have faith in the system, then they're not going to participate in the system. And we can only get the leaders we want, we can only drive change if people are participating. So it's critical that folks feel that their vote is secure, that their vote will be counted, that their vote matters, and we ask for help in spreading that message. It's important in primaries. I know we just did this a few months ago, but this primary is important, and then the November election is, of course, important as well. If you have any questions, if you don't believe anything we're saying, if you have neighbors who don't believe anything we're saying, please take me up on my offer for a tour or watch our videos online. I really think that if you see it up close, you're going to feel a lot better about the elections you've got here in Colorado. And I'm throwing back the curtains, I'm opening the window, I'm saying, come on in. We want you to see it. That's how good we feel about it, that we're not hiding anything here. We want you to come in and see.
Bianca, do you want to talk about final thoughts and any work that people can plug into with Colorado Black Women for Political Action?
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks to George and Joan for the work that you're doing, because I think it's extremely important that people understand the process, that people are clear on access to the voting process and actually how to vote. And I would just like to tell everybody, because we're in COVID and we're missing the personal one-on-one touch and the GOP efforts, I would just encourage you to just call 10 close friends, call 10 close family members, make sure that they have their ballot, make sure that they're completing their ballot. And even if you can pick up ballots, you know, go ahead and do that. Just, we have to do a little extra at this time. So we're all doing a little more for our personal responsibilities. And of course, I just want to thank again Common Cause for all the work that you've done. I truly, truly appreciate it. And you can visit our Facebook page, Colorado Black Women for Political Action. And there you'll have an opportunity to see and hear from all of the individuals who we've endorsed. If you haven't completed your mail-in ballot, I have. But if you haven't, that's also an option. And I would just encourage you to just also join our organization. And we're also working on a GOTV effort where we'll be going into different communities and homes picking up ballots. So if you want to join, visit our Facebook page. Thank you.
Yeah, calling 10 friends to make sure they vote is important every election, and now more than ever. Yeah, Joan, would you care to close us out?
Yeah, I just wanted, she took the words right out of my mouth. Just tell every neighbor, every friend, make sure they have their ballot, make sure they have voted, make sure they voted early. Yeah, I can't tell you, just even 2 days ago, an employee came up to me and asked me all kinds of questions about how to register to vote. And I'm like, we work at the clerk's office and you're registered to vote? So I walked her through it. I felt like I had done just my good deed for the day. So a lot of people don't feel comfortable asking. Make them feel comfortable. Give them that knowledge. I want to tell you, part of your question was how to, as far as access and as far as language barriers and so on and so forth. Arapahoe County has translated their ballot since I've been in office every single year to Spanish. We do have an actual program that you can select a language and they'll explain any sort of question that you have that's on the ballot. So you can go to any VSBC if you have some sort of questions and there's a language barrier. Our election judges have that number and you can just go ahead and call and they'll put that particular language on the phone and explain whatever question you have. So there's more to come for sure when it comes to access as far as different languages, as long as I'm in office anyway. Just make sure you vote early. Try to anyway. I know that people have a tendency to wait to the last minute, but we're looking forward to seeing those numbers come in and looking for the turnout. It maybe possibly beating Jefferson County.
And campaigns truly appreciate early voters. Trust me, they do.
Yes, yes, for sure.
All right. So thank you, everybody who joined us. Thank you so much to our panelists for making the time on this evening to come talk about elections. You can follow up more of our work at commoncause.org and learn more about our election protection efforts at justvotecolorado.org. And we will be sending out an email to everyone who RSVP'd with some of the information and links that you heard here tonight. So find a way to plug in and vote early and vote often. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.